It's episode 10. We're here. We have a lot of questions tonight. We're doing a show in which we have no theme, we have no special guest. We're just answering our questions that people have submitted, which is kind of different from what we've been doing lately. I know. So we are going to start off with a few of our patrons who submitted questions, because that is one of the perks of being a patron on our show, is that you get priority when we have a free-for-all show like this. Before we start, we're going to do our introductions. So we've got Pepper.
Oh, could she be any cuter?
She's the ugliest little thing I've ever seen.
She's like the only not horribly ugly pug I think I've ever met.
She's precious.
She is. So we have Pepper Petrie from Petrie Pickles. Could you have made that any harder to say, Adam? Good Lord.
She's on the show tonight because she's having a bit of anxiety tonight.
Yeah.
She just needs some attention. So.
Aww.
Okay. Oh, look at that little face. Okay. This is gonna be hard for me.
Focus, Rachel. And we've got Douglas and Jacob, Simon.
They're
somewhere, but also Rachel, the flute mechanic. And we have Kim and her lovely little succulent plants that live on her windowsill. Oh, you can see two of them.
You can sort of see them. They live
Yay.
right there.
Yay.
There's not enough space for actual other things in this place.
Fabulous. And I have off screen my 3 new fur babies of Rory, Pim, and Tib, who are busily digging in the bottom of their cage right now. So that's a good time.
Good
and
for
I'm
them.
Sarah Stockton. All right. So we should do like a menagerie episode.
Done.
It would take the whole hour to go through Rachel's, though.
That's exactly it. I actually selfishly want to do that episode because I just want to spend an
I would
hour
just
with
talk
you.
too much. That's,
I would
see all of Rachel's
Yeah,
stuff.
that would be so great.
Anyway.
Anywho, all right. So our disclaimers are the usual ones, in that our opinions are our own and not those of anyone who we may or may not be affiliated with. We will disagree on some things, and that's okay. We'll probably change our minds on some of the stuff that we say tonight, and that's also good, because that is how we learn and get better and improve and constantly stay on top of this craft. And use any information that we give you tonight at your own risk. So our first question comes from Eric, and Eric has been hounding us for weeks to answer this question. So Eric, I hope you're watching. If you're not, shame on you.
it's a great question.
It's a great question. Okay. So this deals with, so Eric is a tech, and this deals with split E's and how they are set up. So in a nutshell, his question boils down to, sometimes manufacturers set up the split E to close all the way, and sometimes they set it up to not close all the way. And sometimes either one of those configurations can cause the key height opening issues, or lost motion issues, or other issues. But also the other question was sort of like, well, why? Why have that difference in how they're set up? So I am going to grab my screws and my timer, and we'll see who's going to go first on this juicy tidbit of a question. Here we go. All right, so we've got blue is Kim. All right, I know you like this question. Yellow is Adam. Me and Rachel can bring us home.
All right, I hope I have something left to say.
I'm going to leave the really technical stuff to Adam. So in a nutshell, all of the manufacturers have sort of their default heights. And just like splitties and G donuts and stuff like that on Flute are sort of weighing of pros and cons, Piccolo, same thing. One of the things that I was looking for when I bought my own Piccolo is, I own a Burkhardt. I used to own a Yamaha. Well, I still own it. I just don't play it anymore. And I was actually looking for a company that had the splitty set more open, because as a player, I actually prefer the splitty to sort of exist, but not really. And it's because for me, I find that it works better with trills. It still helps the E. So it just, yeah, personal preference. That didn't really answer much.
we have a free for all. Adam, go.
So for me, this seems like a pretty straightforward question. Really, most of them are set up so that way they should just barely be open, just a crack, almost to the point where you can't see it. Some are set a little bit higher than that, and it's the only way that I can really determine that is to kind of play around with it. To first start by sanding in whatever your articulation material is, and then seeing how that affects your ventings and your lost motion and things like that. And it's a little bit of trial and error, so.
Cool. All right. So I think, like Eric am a big proponent of setting it to shut most of the time, because I cannot stand that feeling of lost motion that you get in the G if you have the E keys closed and then the G is like chunk. It drives me bonkers. However, over time, the crew here has convinced me that on certain instruments you really do have to crack it, and I reluctantly admit that they are right, but I do still try to set it closed whenever I can. All right, Rachel.
Yeah, so to tie all of that together, what everyone's saying is
Rachel.
there's a sweet spot on each flute and piccolo, and you just have to find that magical positioning and venting for that key that doesn't have any of the side effects that are less desirable with that you can have with splitty. There's a position where there are no side effects. You just gotta find it, and also balance that with what the player prefers to hear and feel. So they might like it closed all the way despite other things. You know, I might know someone like that. And that's totally fine. You do you.
We're in a free for all, so I'm gonna talk. I play so lightly that like it just that the G.
Okay, so which one are you saying?
So if you
the hiccup.
Okay, I don't have any instruments with keys on them.
Right, I understand what you're saying. You don't like feeling the lost motion in the split Gs.
Yes, exactly. So if you have your right hand down and you tap your G finger, it's like
but when do you do that?
When you're doing leaps from like high E down to like a low E.
Right, so here's sort of my caveat on how I set up my rule of thumb for setting these up. So that way you get the best of all of those worlds without that kathunk.
Yeah.
So what I do is I first go in and I sand in the articulation material, so that way I get the slightest amount of drag with the feeler, but enough that I would call that a leak if it was closing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I set up the Gs. So basically, you don't get that because it's already so close that it could be like a misregulation as well.
Yeah.
And then I go in and I make sure that I don't have lost motion between G1 and G2. And then that's when I start looking at, well, how high is the venting there? And then at that point, I
keep
then
talking.
Adjust the back bar.
What the ka-chunk they're talking about is this right here.
I'm gonna make you big for a sec.
Okay. Especially for the players watching, to clarify.
So it's that second where you move it and it goes down. It's that particular fingering that is the problem. Of course, when you're playing chromatically and stuff like that, you don't feel it. So there is like one set of fingerings where it's a pain in the butt. However, like I was on the fence about even wanting a splitty because I don't find I need one on piccolo. I don't need one. So for me, the fact that it opened up more was actually a good thing because it gave me a little bit of the venting without actually pulling off my ability to do some of the extra trills that you kind of do lose.
Right. It does affect certain trills if you have it closed too much. And that's also good for players to know that if you have a splitty and you see that little extra G key isn't closing, that's how it's kind of supposed to be, up to a point, because it's not intended for that pad to be sealing anything. It's just changing the venting. It's just changing the volume there. So don't be alarmed if you see a little space.
And the truth of the matter is on piccolo, because the bodies are conical, it's not as relevant
Yeah.
to have a split E. So it's not as relevant, and because it does, do different things, you can have an on-off split E.
Ooh,
yes.
do you have one?
I do.
Well, I don't have.
I
well,
have
mine.
one in pieces.
Question for the group. That was our time
Yeah.
on the free-for-all for this question.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Well, we got some other stuff to do.
Or should we like do this on a super?
Give me 20 seconds.
One.
Well,
Well,
I do
okay,
count.
come on, be real
I
here.
have
Okay, hang on.
on-off split G, but it's unique to my company, so
Okay, hang
it
on.
doesn't work
I have
the rest of the way.
I have it off of a Piccolo, which isn't necessarily the most helpful for
It's like,
everybody. It goes together like this.
I'm gonna
Right?
hang on.
That's
Okay.
great.
Thanks. I try my best. So when the mechanism is actually together, it's like this. And the way that the on-off is if I flip it over, you can actually see on this side, there's a little pin that comes out. And this one actually has a pin on both sides, and you can regulate how that works. But you can, if you want the split E on, you pull the pin out so it crosses across those two pieces. And if you want the split E off, you just push the little pin. I use a toothpick, and then it goes away. So it's enough of a up in the air issue that it's a really common thing for manufacturers of like the highest end professional piccolos to make it an on-off, specifically because players go, yeah, sometimes I like it and sometimes I don't.
Yeah. So Rachel, would
So-
you, for the players out there, just quickly, which trills in particular are the ones that won't work if it's set up too closed?
The main one that we always check for is the high E to F sharp trill.
Mhm.
That one will turn into an E to C tremolo, like
Mhm.
it's the C below it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the main
Yeah.
one to check. And when if you're a technician trying to decide where to put the split E and how low can you go, that's like the how low can you go test.
Yep.
Yep.
And I realized part of what changed my mind with this whole debate was I was like, oh, come on, I just do it. Oh, you can make it closer. And then I picked up my Piccolo and I was like, oh, crap.
That doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Doesn't
But
work.
Thank you, Eric, for bringing some controversy. to
Yeah,
this show.
I choose to sacrifice that trill because I don't ever use it and I like the feeling. So, anywho.
And yes, sometimes getting the lost motion out of it, which is part of I think his question. Sometimes getting the lost motion out and getting it like perfectly in that like sweet spot is a bit of a bear. Yes, sometimes like getting it.
Like for your Piccolo, the amount of venting, there's no way you could ever get rid of that lost motion.
Oh no! It's designed specifically to have that venting. So like it's like this. My Piccolo is a Burkhardt, and they are designed to have a pretty big leak. That's built into the acoustics, built into the design.
Right.
Better, worse doesn't really matter. But so if you're trying to get that Piccolo to close all the way down,
it's going to mess up so many other things.
I wouldn't, but if I was, I'd probably call Burkhardt directly and talk to somebody there about what kind of modifications you could do at that point, because they're not really designed to do that.
Right, exactly. Yep. Okay,
So,
let's move on. So yeah. All right, so Bob, one of our patrons, says, how is tonehole work different? Well, wait, hang on. No, okay, we'll go in this order. How's tonehole work different on rolled versus soldered toneholes? All right, let's roll. Kim again, man. All right.
Right.
And
All
then
right.
Rachel.
Sorry, guys.
And then Adam. And then me. Okay. Take it away.
The biggest difference for tonehole work on rolled versus soldered toneholes is honestly how much you can actually level them. The rolled toneholes are one piece of metal that's drawn out of the body and then curled over at the end. And you do have a limited amount of how flat you can make it based on how level the roll is initially. Whereas with soldered toneholes, you don't have to worry about running into that particular problem. There are other problems, but that would be the biggest one is how far you can go safely.
All right, good timing.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it comes down to, is and also how much material you have. And sometimes if they've already been leveled, or attempted to be leveled, you don't know how much material you have. Like, very few of us are starting with a raw tone hole that hasn't been touched. So you might be more conservative with your leveling. You're probably more conservative also with how thin you get the rim at the top. The thin rim is desirable, but you don't want to sacrifice too much mass on a rolled tone hole, whereas soldered tone hole has plenty of mass. Am I at 30?
I forgot to set the time. Yes, that was perfect. Perfect.
Yes, exactly 30 seconds.
Absolutely perfect. Good job. All right, Adam.
So with soldered tone holes, the biggest issue with that is that if the tone hole is not concentric within itself, because it's first soldered and then it's reamed on a mill, so sometimes they're not perfect. So sometimes you can have variances in the width of the rim. Whereas with tone holes, the process by which it extrudes them is in the school of thought called metal spinning. And as it does that, it's literally pulling and stretching the material kind of like bread dough. So it gets thinner and thinner and thinner. So you have to be much more conscientious about how much you're taking off.
I started your timer late, but
It's
that's good. Okay. Cool. All right, starting my timer. Everything that they said, I basically I treat them pretty much the same, except for how flat you can safely make them. I actually have a photo of a tone hole that got a rolled one that got too low. It just came to me this way. I don't know why it happened. It might have just been really thin, like Adam said, it got stretched really thin. It might have been someone tried to level it at some point and went too far, and then over time it split. But let me pull that photo up because it is rather horrifying.
Oh,
okay. All right. Can we see it?
Hey, baby.
Yes, there we go.
Okay.
Ouch.
Yeah. So here we've got this giant hole. So this is like, it's been pulled up and rolled over. And so this is like, the top of the roll is missing.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. And they were wondering why their flute didn't sound so good. So
were they also wondering why that pad kept getting torn?
Yeah, it was an interesting looking pad. But anyway, it is fixable. Like nothing is doom. So I fixed it. Life is good. We moved on.
Yay, Sarah. Good fix.
See, like that was a skill that like they go over a little bit if needed at the Straubinger course, because Sarah, you and I had our course together.
Yes.
And one of the people there filed through multiple of them.
Yes.
So
excellent.
Yes.
There were some explanations about that and how that you can fill in the gap with solder.
Yes.
And then it gives you more material to work with.
I have to say though, like you have to really try. Like we say that they're thin,
It's hard.
but it takes a long time. Yeah.
Although Rachel and I will both say that if you have some of the what did we both have? We had the platinum silver flutes at the same time, and boy, those tone holes came down quickly.
Oh, really?
It was totally fine. It's just that there's it is really important to keep in mind when you're doing tone holes that if you're doing combinations of metals or like alloys, or if you're doing silver or gold and different carats of gold and stuff like that, like that just because you went on one tone hole does not necessarily mean that like you should be timing yourself, because you do have to like check.
Yeah, know your materials. There's soft stuff, there's hard stuff.
Right, and know your tools and your techniques, because some people use like the same kinds of files that are used on saxophones, and they'll spin them under power. And
don't do that.
Yeah, and saxophone drawn tone holes are made differently than flute drawn tone holes, and they are supposed to be. They are much bigger, much thicker, and it takes way more time to do damage to those than to a flute. So don't do it under power.
And we
are
not
the same babies.
A question and a few questions from now where we get to talk more about tone holes. So let's do that in a few questions. Yeah, because this
Okay.
is like literally one of my favorite topics in the whole wide world. So
Yeah, me too.
talk forever about this. All right. All right. So Alexi, who's also one of our patrons, says, can you explain how you prep Piccolo toneholes for Straubinger pads? And so this is actually more about tonehole work, but just
Okay.
and
Give
Piccolo.
me a
Different tone.
All right. And Kim and I have photos, and Adam looks like he's got a show and tell. But let's see who's first.
I'm in the middle of doing this myself
Okay.
right now. So
Oh my God, Kim. No, wait, this is Adam. Adam.
That's Adam. Okay.
Not be first.
Well, I just hold on.
Okay, you're not first. Adam's second. Okay. First is Kim. Why are you always first? Rachel, you're third and I am last.
You're the one making it up.
I'm not though. It's it's chaos theory. You're
It's-
governed by chaos.
Monkeys and typewriters.
That's
right?
our theme.
Governed by chaos. I want a t-shirt that says that.
Oh, can we get that as we should
With like a
trademark
flute
that.
in pieces underneath it. Governed by chaos and like a flute.
But chaos.
Where's
That's
Russ?
excellent.
I'll buy that.
Yes, pre-order.
Okay, so
All right. Who's starting? Kim.
I am apparently.
Go, Kim, go. Oh,
Okay.
did I get your photos up?
No, you so didn't.
No,
No,
should I?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Sure. Sorry.
That's okay.
It's been a long weekend week, and that always kind of throws everybody's life a little bit odd. So I have two. Oh, is it too big? Ding dong.
No.
Um,
Hang on. Wait.
Are you gonna make it smaller?
There you go.
This is
Yeah.
a really bad quality photo, but it's
it good?
something.
We're centered.
Yes, it's fine. Yes,
Okay.
it's fine.
It looks
Um,
good here.
So
That was your
I
time, Kim,
have
but I'm
this-
going to start you again.
well, you just got the picture.
I know. Go.
The biggest thing is that if you're shifting from like a squashy felt pad to a Straubinger pad, which is a harder pad, you do need to change the rims. So the picture on the left is on a Piccolo that originally had squishy felt pads, and that would have been totally fine because, you know, they were really level. They were just really super wide. So the one on the right is the tonehole modified to have a sharper, not like cutting sharp, but a more defined chimney, and that allows you to use less pressure and still get a really, really good seal. So that's in that the one on the right is not quite done yet. It's about 90% done. So
Cool. Excellent.
there
Thanks,
we go.
Kim. All right.
Yeah.
Adam.
Okay, so this is one of my drawers of Piccolo tonehole tools. And Piccolo
Wait,
tonehole,
show that again. I just made you big.
It'd be
Lovely.
like, it's almost like you make them or something.
like,
Beautiful.
well, yeah, it's like I make these things. But that's one of my drawers of tonehole tools. So basically, it's all about not only knowing your tools and having a variety of tools. There is power in simplicity, but it's also a matter of, I'm still little on my screen. It's annoying me. Anyway.
Oh,
so,
I'm sorry. Did you want to be big? I made you
no,
little again after
I could only see your face, Sarah.
Oh.
And, like, where did I go? Anyway, ADD. It's
that,
about
that was
having,
your time.
well, okay, I'll come back and I'll take over the free-for-all.
Okay, sounds deal.
We're so honest about this. I'll just take over the free for all. It's cool.
All right, Rachel, go for it.
Wow, I hadn't been thinking about what I was going to say. For Piccolo toneholes, I learned some wonderful techniques both at the companies I worked at and also from Adam for filling in and treating the open grains on the tonehole surface. That's an important part of tonehole prep, especially with Straubinger pads, because they're so flat and precise and firm. If you have little grains open on the tonehole rim, they're going to leak. So those need to be filled, and the tonehole needs to be recontoured after that.
Right. Okay, so I have a couple of photos that actually are exactly what Rachel was just talking about. So I will do that. Here is a before and after of that open grain. Are we good? We can see it?
Yes.
Yeah, so you've got, these are the open grain lines that we're talking about here, these sideways things that follow the grain of the Piccolo. And then of course we've got
chunks.
actual chunks missing, which is not grain, that's just oops. So anyway, so what you do is you seal all of those open grain lines and make the rim nice and pretty. And I'm going to steal a little bit of the free for all, haha, Adam, because I have one more picture I want to share. And my other picture is of an actual big chunk missing. Wait. Oh no. Oh, I think. Well, we'll have to look at my actual. Yeah, Instagram. Okay. Oh wait, that's not it either. Shoot.
Oh well.
Okay. Well, Adam, you talk, and then I'll find that.
Okay. So to sum up, basically your objective is to get the thinnest rim possible and to fill the open pore and grain with glue and seal it up. And those open pores and grain are actually where the tool has cut into the vascular system of the tree. So you're seeing a cross section of basically the blood vessels of the tree. And the way you have to go about it is the outer bevel is, in the world of greater woodwind making, is actually called the fly. So you have to use different fly facing tools. So like some are sanders, but then you also have some that are hand cutters. And that allows you to bring the overall width down, so that way your rim goes from being like this to much thinner. And then having a chamfer just slightly is important, because it's not necessarily so important that the rim is dead flat, but that the rim is planar unto itself. And because most Straubinger pads are convex on the surface, they have to be sitting on the inside edge of that tone hole. So if you don't have any sort of chamfer there, then it means that the tone hole is actually oval shaped. So you're going to have leaks opposite each other.
Yes. I found my picture, and then I realized that it's actually a flute, but it still kind of applies.
I have a Piccolo one. It's too bad I didn't pull it up. That's okay. Anyway.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Technology.
Well, here we go. But it's kind of the same idea here, where there was a chunk missing out of the rim, and you could actually see it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Good capture.
Like all the air is just going whoosh right through there.
What's great about that is that tone hole looks almost identical to the older Haynes Piccolo tone holes.
Yeah.
So that's a really good example on how to treat those tone holes, since there are a lot of those Piccolos floating around.
Cool. Yeah. So basically, Adam had mentioned filling it with, so this is glue and wood dust, and then reshaping the rim so that, like Kim was mentioning, it's a nice thin rim. It's actually thinner than the original width was, but that will set it up nicely for Straubingers. I think that had felt in it, but it's still, if it's got a big chunk missing, you still have to treat it like like anything else. So anywho, cool. Do we want to, anybody want to add anything else to that conversation? Go on.
It is a good idea to use a woodworking grade of super glue, just because it does soak into the fibers differently. Hobby glue, you have to use like the water thin stuff, but hobbyist glue tends to collect on the surface and then it flakes off and you do a lot of swearing.
Yes.
But
yes. Which glue do you have?
I have either Stick Fast when I'm in a pinch, just because I can get that at Woodcraft down the street. But you can also get it places like Rockler. It's a brand called Hot Stuff.
Yes.
Now a little bottle of Hot Stuff is like $20. It's expensive.
But it's so worth it.
This is the label, but this is not
the
container, because the new containers will break open. And I found this out one day, and it was an unfun day at the shop. So I transferred the contents of the super glue now into just another container, and I put the label on it, because when it opens up, it's a bad day.
Yeah, because it's so thin. It is so thin.
It's like water. But this is available at any woodworking shop as well, or most woodworking shops. If you're in Canada, you can get it at Lee Valley.
I think I just ordered mine from Farees, actually.
I'm sure you can. They don't like doing that with me.
Yeah, of course.
A good thing to use as an applicator is to use a sewing needle eye. I can't get it in focus, but it's just a sewing needle eye. But it's important to clip the end of it, so that way it's tubular prong. and it will pick up the tiniest little drop, and you can sort of paint it from the inside.
I think this is something we should do on the Patreon.
If you want to know way more cool things about toneholes, join the Patreon, because we could talk about toneholes fixing and stuff like that for years.
And there we'll actually do like tutorials and Q&As, and people can ask things, and that's the place. That's the place. If you're interested in this, join us on Patreon. Next question. All right, Michael. Oh wait, no, Fran, who's a patron, says, under what circumstances do you remove the posts during a Piccolo repair of any kind? I do it when I remove the head joint cork, just, if that's all. No, kidding. I'm kidding. Just to change the cork, just take everything off.
There's a whole bunch of texts out there going, what? Wait, what?
Oh, yeah, just wait for our April Fool's Day show.
That's
all I'm saying.
I tend to be the paranoid, like, let's not get sued person. So there will be like lots of splash screens of disclaimers on that episode.
Just keep going, like, she's gonna kill us. All right, our order. Who's that? Oh, it's me. Okay. And then Adam, and then Rachel. Kim, you're last. All right. Okay. What are we? Oh, posts. All right. Well, I already gave my answer. No, I pretty much only take the posts off if it's an overhaul, and if they are cooperative in coming off. I don't force them. If they don't want to come off, I leave them the heck alone, because I can put helicoils in to like replace stripped out screws, but I don't enjoy doing that just for fun. So no.
Okay.
All right, who's next?
I think it's kind of fun, but
the first one was terrifying, the second one was slightly less terrifying, and now it's just kind of like I'd rather just do other things. Adam, go for it.
I only take them out when I do an overhaul, just because if you remove them for any other kind of service, when you put them back in, the posts are going to be indexed in a different place than they were before. So now all of a sudden everything is completely wrong. So only if I'm looking to reset the whole instrument do I do that, or unless I'm having to do like a rib screw repair.
Rachel.
Yeah, I'd say I only remove the ribs and posts on the Piccolo during an overhaul, and that's specifically usually because I'm also oiling it at that time. So that way I can get the entire surface of the wood coated and let it soak. So other than that, I let sleeping Piccolo posts lie.
Yep. You got 10. Okay. Kim will take 10 seconds.
That's it. No, that's it. Same here. I only take them off in an overhaul, or if there's some kind of crack repair that runs right up against the rib. So that would be the only other time, and that's because you don't want to glue the rib to the body, because but that's really overhaul and a crack repair that's really close to the rib, and that is it. And if it's going to fight me during the overhaul, I'm going to have some heavy thinking about whether I'm even taking it off for that.
I was going to explain why we take them off.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
This
like
one,
an overhaul.
This one's been relaxing for a year.
Yeah.
Is it relaxed? It's perfectly chill now, right?
Right. So the reason we do it in an overhaul is because the wood has changed since it was made, and having the rib screws and everything in there, the wood can't relax fully, so you have tension in the instrument. That does affect the way it vibrates. So especially if you're going to be introducing oil to help hydrate the wood, everything's going to move, and you need as few variables and as few obstacles for the wood to work around, so that way it doesn't introduce any extra strain. And then also, so you don't get to the very end of your overhaul and then have a bubble of oil come out from underneath the rib and ruin some pads. That's really discouraging.
Wow. So,
or to have it happen with a client. when it gets
Oh,
back.
Dang, I never thought about that. Kim, you brought up a good point. You were like, yeah, I take them out if a crack runs through it. But the other thing is that on a lot of piccolos, so this is actually one that I'm overhauling right now. I couldn't get the ribs off safely. It's like ancient. I'm not fighting it. It's not worth it. But anyway, a lot of times on many piccolos, this is your D sharp key.
I dislike that a lot.
Yeah, these two holes very often actually get drilled all the way through to the bore. They're not originally, but as the wood moves over time, then the bottoms of those holes open up. So one of the things that I do on every single wooden instrument, anything COA, overhaul, repad, is I strip it down to this. I plug up all of the holes with silicone, and then I put it underwater briefly and blow air through it. And when you start seeing air bubbles coming out from under that rib, you go, curses. Because you then
that's not what I say.
But that's when I would go after that and make it come off, because or sometimes you see it up at the head joint end, one of these screws. Then you have to you just
I mean, there's nothing worse than, you know, an instrument also when you see bubbles coming just out of mystery places.
Yes. Oh, so when Adam and I went to
That was exciting.
Oh my God. I think that video's on my Instagram still. But I spent a week with Adam learning all the mysteries of the piccolo, and I brought an exotic wood piccolo, and we're still not entirely sure what it was. But when we plugged it all up, literally bubbles were like coming through the body, and it wasn't cracked. It was like porous.
Ghost wood.
It was just like it was filled with straws, and it was like bubbles coming out of a sponge when you squeeze a sponge.
That's what it was.
No, that's not good.
Awful. So
then we said some choice words.
And that's why everything's made out of grenadilla most of the time.
Yeah.
So
anyway, that was our free for all timer. Shall we go on?
yeah, we got other stuff.
All right. Our next question is Michael asks a three-parter. What are your opinions about the Pisoni S2 pads? Do you see any advantages or disadvantages by using Straubinger pads versus S2? And my brain just went, oh, Straubinger. So pro tip, Straubinger, hard G, ger, not Straubinger.
Yes.
So you can, and I asked when I went to Straubinger training.
I always remember it like
here, say Straubinger, and I was like, that's how I always heard it. And then I started hearing people say Straubinger, and like when I was like, oh, so I finally just like, you know, got the cojones to say Joel.
It's German.
I always remember it like being cherries. So Straubinger, like the cherries.
Or you think about it like it's a German name, so it's Straubinger, right?
Yeah.
It's terrible. I just erase that. I'll edit that out later.
Anyways,
anywho,
it's Straubinger.
And last part of this question was, can you mix and match Pisoni S2s and Straubingers in a flute? So our order for this three-parter is me, okay. Rachel.
Oh, good.
Adam.
So much enthusiasm.
Kim. All right. Okay. My opinions about Pisoni S2 pads is that they are a high quality alternative to Straubingers. My advantages versus disadvantages, my personal preference is to use Straubingers or what's already in the flute. But I am more comfortable working with Straubingers because I've done more work with Straubingers. So that's the only reason I prefer them. 3, can you mix and match them in the flute? I used to, and now I don't anymore. And that is my time. So I'll talk more about that in the free-for-all. Next, Rachel.
Yes. They are similar, but there are some engineering differences between the two pads. I work with both a lot. I like both. But like Sarah, I tend to go with, have preference for the pad that was in the flute when it was built, the pad that it was designed for. And also like Sarah, I used to mix and match, and now I do not. So try not to. It would even be better, I think, to reskin than to mix and match, in my opinion. If you're like doing a COA and you just need to replace a few pads rather than doing a full repad.
Agreed. Perfect. Kim.
No, same
Adam,
as
I
both.
lied.
Oh,
Wait,
Adam. Okay, go.
Adam. Sorry.
Well,
Sorry.
I get mostly piccolos. I don't have this debate as often, so I'm actually, even though I know it's better not to mix and match, if I don't have them on hand, I'll do a Straubinger. I know. Or I'll just reskin it. But there is a difference in skin material and some differences in how they're made. And I did actually have a client that had a flute that had Straubingers in it originally, and then she sent it back to the maker, and then they overhauled it with S2s, and it came back and it was different, and she didn't like it. So she had me put Straubingers back in.
Same as basically everybody else said.
Always fun being last, right?
Well, except I'll clarify that the reason why mixing and matching is a bad choice,
Adam.
unless you have, unless you have to. Like I mean, I would rather reskin as well. But if you have the ability, sorry, Adam, if you have the ability to not mix and match, the preference would be to not mix and match. I mean, occasionally there are keys where it doesn't really make a difference. Any of the independent keys, it doesn't really, you're not going to notice a difference. So the G sharp and stuff like that. On the main line, the biggest thing is that they feel a little bit different. They're built a little different, so they compress a little bit different. So you can get a little bit of stability issues, and that's where it sort of comes into play. They're both an equally high quality pad, though, and there are other pads that were made, perhaps still are made, that are not the same quality. So there's definitely they're lumpy and they're nasty and we don't like them. And they're not good friends.
They feel cheap and they smell cheap and they're just cheap.
They're just
anyway,
plain bad.
if you're looking for the two Straubinger like pads, stick with the Straubinger pads. And if you can't get them because you aren't certified, the S2s are going to be a good option. And get your reskinning chops up.
But do not tell your clients that you are using Straubinger pads if you are putting S2.
Yes,
absolutely.
Do not call them Straubingers. Like, don't freaking do that. Because clients get
not
so
cool.
upset when I.
You know what really grinds our gears?
Yeah. Well, because you're lying to them.
You're lying. So, I mean, that's actually a legal liability.
Right. And not only that, but it's like when clients find out, like that. They thought they had Straubingers for 2 years in their flute, and suddenly, like, I tell them, "Oh no, you have Pisoni S2s." They go, "What's a Pisoni S2? I was told those were Straubingers." Like,
and we send pictures.
Just I'm putting Pisoni S2s into your flute. This is what Brandon uses in their brand new flutes. It's an excellent pad, right? Then they'll be like, "Oh, okay, go ahead and put Pisoni S2s in my flute." Like, you don't have to lie and call them Straubingers.
Right, and especially some people will do that if they're not on the Straubinger list, and it's really a disservice to the Straubingers as people themselves, because if the work is done poorly, and it's actually an S2, but it was being sold as a Straubinger, then they could blame their experience on a pad when actually it was a poor quality installation with a different pad. And it's not that S2s are less good, it's that they're different. And they are good in their own right, so they need to be given their dues.
Right, and that being said is that they are similar enough to a Straubinger that if you are Straubinger certified, your S2 installations will be much, much better than if you haven't gone through that training process. Or there are people who have not been Straubinger certified, we talked about this before, but they have the mechanical and understanding of physics and what's happening so that they can understand how to install those pads properly. So it's like, yes, Straubinger certification for like 90% of people is a very, very good thing. There are some people who do have that mechanical aptitude and that like physical understanding of how the parts work together. But in my experience, even people who have gone through Straubinger certification sometimes don't have that mechanical understanding still. And so it's just, by calling things by the right name, it just, I can't tell you how many people have said, well, I don't like Straubingers because they rip. And I'm just like, no. Poorly installed Straubinger pads rip. well-installed Straubinger pads tend not to rip.
I've had clients that said that, and I'm like, that's awesome, but you have S2s.
That too, exactly.
So they were unhappy with the pad they had, and they had been told they were a Straubinger pad, but it turns out, and then they had signed up for the rip scenario, and the truth is that they didn't have Straubinger pads. They had S2 pads, and they were installed in a manner that was incorrect, so of course they ripped.
Yes, and I've had people who had. There are also techs out there who will tell players that Straubingers are more prone to ripping because they've never been able to achieve a good solid installation with them. So they really do truly believe that it's a pad. I've had clients of mine come to mind and say, I don't like Straubingers, I don't want them on my flute. And like I open up their flute and they have Straubingers.
But that's like, just the myths, you know.
That's the myths, you know.
I think that the big thing is, like, if you're a tech and you're working with these, be really honest with your clients, because there's no reason to call something other than it is.
Right, because
there's nothing wrong with either of them. So just come out and let them know, and your clients will appreciate the fact that you're honest with them. If you say, you know what, I can't get Straubinger pads because I'm not certified. I've been working with them for a really long time and I'm super comfortable with them, and I have like tons of happy clients, and you can talk to them, but I just can't get them. Is this okay? You know what? Clients are perfectly happy when they don't feel like they're having the wool pulled over their eyes.
Yes. And like,
same with the opposite way. Some people can only get Straubingers and they find it difficult to get the Pisoni pads because they don't know how to order them. So they may have Straubingers and not have, but just be really open. If you're a tech, be open and honest with your clients, because we all need each other to be open and honest. Same with if you don't have the right size in stock, for heaven's sakes, like please. Okay,
there's some feelings in this.
So here's the thing. We're a bit passionate about this. If you don't have the right size in stock, for the love of all that is holy, please just call the client and tell them that you don't have the right size. They come in like 57,000 sizes. You happen to not have that one. You should call them. Just tell them it's okay. Phone a friend. Anything. Don't put a pad in that's like so big that you can't squash it in.
Okay.
And don't put it in so much that you feel like you can actually like put your thumbnail around it.
I'm willing to bet that the players who are watching this would rather wait an extra week even to have their flute done properly. To have someone throw in the wrong thing and tell them that it's the right thing. Like, anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but the point is, we see this from time to time, so we're bringing it up because it happens, and we just want people to be aware.
I don't know if anybody watching has noticed, but we're a bit passionate about our jobs.
And opinionated.
Let's just say that I spent several hours yesterday and today making a video for a client because every single pad in this person's flute was installed wrong, and they were told that they were Straubingers and they were Pisonis, and like that is not a conversation that I want to have with one of my clients. And fortunately, after he picked his jaw up off the floor, he was very gracious about it. But like this tech cost this person, they had repadded it 2 years ago, and now I have to overhaul it. Like,
that's a lot of money.
That's
to have
a
to
lot
spend
of
twice.
money,
It's
and
not
the
cool.
has not been right.
It puts us in a compromised position.
It does, because
it does.
It's
really awkward.
Yeah.
It gives us burden of truth and burden of proving it.
Yes.
And then having to bring this to a player is never a good feeling. That's the worst feeling for me, is when I know that they spent a lot of money. Recently. Even 6 months. Like I once had a flute and it had been done 6 months prior, and it had like 14 torn pads because they weren't installed correctly. They were supposed to be Straubingers, but they were S2s. And S2s are great pads when they are installed correctly, but that's not the case with this one. And I feel so terrible saying, hey, for me to get this back to where you want it and how you remember it when it was new, or better than when it was new, this is what we have to do.
Yep.
And I don't have a way out of this.
Nope. Yeah.
And we never want to be in a situation where we have to say the tech that you had this to last did this all wrong.
Right.
That's like a really horrible thing. Like,
No,
that's just
we have
a
no
really,
pleasure in that.
No.
really awful position to try to do
Right.
graciously
And-
without throwing the tech under a bus,
and
which
to
we never
also-
want to do.
Right. And to also be aware of, like, there are unscrupulous techs out there who, like, they get the instrument, they're like, oh, this needs a repad, right? And it's like,
We don't want you to think
Right,
that we're
that-
trying to just like,
right,
you know,
that sets
sell
a
you
really
something you don't
bad
need.
precedent for when, like, so, you know, when I have these conversations, I never lead with that. I say, here is what I found when I opened up your flute.
So
And I
hard.
just explain why this doesn't work. This doesn't work. This doesn't work. So you know how you're having trouble with these intervals. You know how this was never consistent. You know how this was fuzzy. You know how it felt all like janky and clanky. You know how, like, here is why you are noticing all those things. You are not insane. I know the other person told you that the flute was fine, but they're like
It's not
gaslighting
fine.
you.
And
It's
see,
not fine.
And see, when that is done, you set up the following technician
Yes.
to fail. So that way, even if it's not in the player's budget to do that, then we are in the position of having to do our best
Right.
with the resources
Or
and
refusing the work because we
or
can't.
refusing the
I
work.
can't put my name. So, like, I could not do a COA on this flute. I can't do a COA on this flute.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
literally
But-
impossible for me to do a good job. So
Right.
I am not going to take someone's money for something that I know is going to be a bad job.
And then what it does is it means that when the work leaves our desk, either we don't do the work or
Yeah.
we're having to make the best out of this bad situation, and then they leave dissatisfied with their experience with us or whoever the following technician was, and it destroys an opportunity to build a lasting relationship for the remainder of one's career. Which is really what we all aspire to do, is to be an advocate in your corner to help you as a player find longevity in what you love to do and how to make a living at it, if that's your objective.
Right. And like, I wanted to say that, like, part of the reason why we wanted to start this show is to help educate players to know when they have a good tech or not, because often you have no idea. Like, anybody can hang up a shingle that says, I am a professional flute tech, right? There is no, like, we can go get Straubinger certified, whatever, but there's no, like, entry test to be a musical instrument repair technician. Like, literally anyone could walk in and say, hey, oh yeah, I'm a pro flute tech, right? And if you only ever go to the same tech and you're kind of like, yeah, my flute's fine, then you never really know what it's like to find someone who's really good. And like, when I bring my, Rachel's a mechanic, so she doesn't have this problem, but like, when I bring my car to the mechanic, like, I don't know if they changed my oil filter. How am I supposed to know? They could be like totally fleecing me. So, like, to the point where, like, I actually drive 100 miles to get to my car mechanic because I trust him, because I know that he's going to do the right work. It is worth it to me to take an entire day to drive up and have him change one of my tires or do my whatever belt, because I know that when it's done, it's actually done. And it's the same thing for players finding a flute technician. Like, how do you know that you've got a great flute technician? Because there are a lot of flute technicians out there with great reputations who are doing really scary work. And so how do you know if you've got someone who's responsible or someone who's just like talking the talk and taking your money and not actually fixing your flute? And so that's
really tricky.
Yeah, that's why we wanted to really start the show. And, you know, that's a huge topic.
And that's part of why we're doing the Patreon as well.
Yes.
So that way we can be like, hey, if you realize that there's a department that you could improve upon or want to learn more about, then hey, we want to be a resource.
Yes.
We just want to help.
Yes.
Because if we help other people, then our jobs get easier.
Yes, exactly. And really, like, we are here for the players. Like, players need to be able to trust that the technician that they take their instrument to is going to do a good job to the best of their ability. And you know what? Like, there is nothing wrong, Tex, with telling one of your customers that you don't know how to do something. There's nothing wrong with that. Say, look,
it's way better than saying you can and not doing a good job.
I did that yesterday. I did the no, I'm not set up to do this. And I also received a call yesterday from somebody who wanted to know, they weren't really sure whether they should do it or maybe they should send it out and they're going to send it out, which is the right call.
Adam, what were you-
Because
oh, sorry.
you
Well, I
don't
was
have to be
saying
the best in everything.
yesterday I got a call from a technician, and it could even be someone that it may be the same person, Kim. They said, hey, I know this is not in my wheelhouse of skills. Is this something that you can or would take on, because I want it done correctly?
Nice.
And there's a lot to be said about that kind of vulnerability and accountability, and that makes a good impression to the customer, and it builds trust and rapport.
Yes.
That's
There's
actually why
power
the
in-
four of us talk so much, is
Well,
because
yeah.
we have different skill sets, and we're good at lots of things, but we will often go, if I have a like crazy weird Piccolo question, I'm totally gonna call up Adam and go, Adam, I get this crazy weird Piccolo question. So I think that being able to have really good dialogues between techs, we should be there for each other, not working against each other. We're a much better team as if we're all on the same side, and the side we should be is, how do we make clients happier, and how do we do better jobs and improve ourselves.
Yep.
The day you think you know everything is the day you need to switch jobs.
Yes.
Yep.
And the day that you
because
think that
that's
you're better
the day you
than
get
everybody.
very
Yes.
because that's when you become extremely dangerous. If you think you know everything and you're better than everybody else, the reality is that's when you become a liability instead of an asset.
Yep.
Yeah. Anytime I get like a bazooka flute in, like gigantic, I'm always like, hey y'all,
I don't do these big things.
I am in really big trouble.
It's like it's like 17 times the size of a Piccolo.
Why are these pads so floppy? Yeah.
I don't
And
understand.
I see them and they're like this, and I'm like, it's as big as my face.
Okay, so can I sum up some of all this that we've been talking about here?
Go.
For those listening, you might be able to hear, hopefully, that we're kind of speaking to two different audiences here. Sometimes we're talking to players, and sometimes we're talking to technicians. So, players, both Straubinger and S2 pads are good. Great question, Michael.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks for driving us back onto the road.
They're both good. The installation is where you get your results, and also the design of the flute. A good technician will take this into account.
And to clarify, because there's been a lot of naysaying and be careful, there are so many wonderful, brilliant technicians in the industry that we widely respect, and we've been working behind the scenes to showcase the work and the experience of so many of these people. So that's not to say that we are the only people to be trusted. It's to say that there are a lot of people that appear to be trusted that shouldn't be, and there are also a lot of people that I just admire.
Yes.
And these are how to see the difference.
Yes, and that speaks to what Kim was talking about. It's the day that the four of us go oh, we're the best, we know everything, you should only consult us about these things. That is the day that we need to be fired and go work at Walmart, because we're done. That's not.
I've been doing this for 25 years, and that in itself is a little bit scary to me, but that's okay, because I thought I was only 25. But
Gosh,
whatever.
Kim, you're so old.
Well, no, but I've been doing this 25 years, and I still get up every morning and I learn some new thing. And it's one of the reasons I love this job, is that there's constantly this learning curve that you create for yourself. You have to want it. You have to want to keep learning. So I create a learning curve for myself every day. If I thought I knew everything,
I want a t-shirt that
just
says,
a puppy, I'm done.
I create a learning curve for myself every day.
We're gonna start a t-shirt collection,
We
by the way.
already have a t-shirt collection. T-shirt
it's
collection.
true, right? It's true. I mean, you have to decide that that's the type of person you want to be. And I think all of us fall into that category of, we all want to learn something more every single day and get better every single day.
So for the technicians watching, that's the other category, right? So we're also saying that don't be shady, be very transparent and be honest, because there's really no good reason for you to not be honest. And secondly, There's also the folks out there that are really also all of us that we just don't know everything yet, and so just don't stop questioning and don't stop seeking more knowledge, even in areas where you think you're an ace and you've got it. Like, keep learning, because I think some of these people that are out there doing this kind of work and unscrupulous stuff, they honestly just don't realize sometimes.
Well, the
And
other
so
thing,
just
and
keep
it's what
broadening your circle.
one of the things that I also, that is really important to understand, is that the manufacturers of flutes are constantly evolving, and the manufacturers of pads are constantly evolving. So even if you got your training like at the very beginning of like Straubinger, back when they were using paper, it's time to like make some phone calls and make sure that you're up to speed. They're super friendly people. Call them, ask them what you should be doing now. Because the reality is, just because when we learned a million years ago and they were using paper because that's the best you had, doesn't mean that that's what you should be using now.
Right.
So part of it is also staying aware that our knowledge base has to evolve too. So just because you were doing it the way that they did it like forever ago, I mean, I'm not using dial-up on my, just because I know I started the internet with dial-up connection, doesn't mean that I'm like, gonna stay with it because it was, hardy and things.
It's even sometimes the evolution is even quicker than that sometimes. So like, already since I went to Miramatsu, they're on like two different versions past the manual that I left training with, right? And I was there 3 years ago. So
they should be our model too. When the companies themselves have this attitude of like Excelsior, better, what can we do better? Like, that's how we as technicians need to be thinking too.
So like, I just got the latest Miramatsu manual from Val because Kim kept saying, "Oh, well, it's in the manual." I'm like, "No, it's not. It's not in my manual."
What are you talking about?
She's like, "God, Sarah, just look it up." I'm like, "But it's not there." She's like, "No, it's." And I was like, "Oh."
Hey, wait, why do you have like 10 extra pages?
I mean, at least you all have a manual.
Yes, that too.
You're gonna get there. It's gonna be okay. We're gonna get you.
But anyway, I feel like I should also call it Straubinger and see if they've got any updates, because it's been a while.
Well, and that's the thing, is it's good to touch base with the companies. If you do lots of work with a company, call them every once in a while and say hi. I mean, they don't usually bite. Yeah, I mean, they're usually really friendly. Call them up, ask if there's something.
And they're all
you should
very
know.
invested in their instruments being repaired properly.
Correctly.
That's a high priority for every single flute maker.
Absolutely.
So if you go into it with that mindset, that's what they want to. That's who they want to hear from.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we got a little on topic, but off topic with that one. But I feel like it was an important fork in the road to explore.
It was.
Episode 10, the Soapbox episode.
Oh, excellent. Can we do that? Can we make that the official title for this? Because that is pretty much what happened there.
It is.
We got something to say.
I had something to get off my chest.
In case anybody watching hasn't noticed, it's been a kind of a week.
So I would like to tell people, if there's anyone still watching.
They are still watching, and they love that we're passionate.
Oh, good. Okay. I was gonna say, if we haven't alienated everyone yet, this flute that I'm so worked up about right now, the owner has asked me to share pictures and videos and everything of it. So my Instagram and Facebook will be filling up with that poor flutes in the coming days. So keep an eye. It's at Boundless Flute on Instagram, and then Boundless Flute CT on Facebook. But I will actually share the diagnosis video that I made for him. It's like 17 minutes long of me picking his flute apart and saying, "Okay, I see this. This causes instability because XYZ. Okay, now I see this."
We're gonna have some sort of like game about every time you said the word trampoline.
Yes, every time I say the word trampoline, take a drink.
Okay. I mean, I'm just going to drink coffee because I don't actually
drink whatever you want. But
every time you say the word trampoline, you should definitely get. It's never a good thing. Trampoline's excellent for fun, not good for flutes.
Not good for flute stability. Yeah. Anywho. All right, friends. That, I started feeling very tired and out of it. And now I'm focused.
Love it.
All
All right. So, anybody want to wrap things
We
up?
have
or are
many
we
other
there?
questions. Come back
We
next
do.
time.
Yes, please.
Yeah, we'll get to the rest of these later.
Speaking of
Pepper
next week.
says it's bedtime.
Oh, Pepper. So next week is our Patreon Tech live interactive chat with Jeff Buick from Muramatsu. So if you were signed up for our Tech Patreon before the 1st of this month, you'll get to chat live with Jeff. Watch out for an email about that because I want questions for him, and we need to agree on a time because we can do it. West Coast people, we cannot do 7 a.m. this time around. We can let you sleep in a little. Hooray. So keep an eye out for that.
This West
Coming
Coast person's real happy about that.
Yeah, I know. Coming up, I have been talking with 3 different flute companies to get them to come on, and they are all very, very excited. So I will be more specific with names and dates, but we are so thrilled that people are interested in coming and talking to you all, both players and technicians. And what we're trying to do is get the companies to come on and do a player chat, a free Facebook show just like this one, and answer all the player questions that we come up with. And then part 2, like what Jeff is doing, and just have a live Q&A with our techs so that they can really ask all of the nitty-gritty questions about that particular company's flutes. So I think it's just going to be a really exciting pairing to start introducing to everybody in the coming weeks and months and beyond. So that is that. All right. So Pepper, good night.
Hug.
Oh, you didn't. Oh my God. Oh my God. All right, I'm just gonna end it because there's nothing better than that. All right, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.